If a traveler does not meet with one who is his better or is his equal, let him firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with a fool. These sons belong to me, and this wealth belongs to me. With such thoughts, a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself, how much less sons and wealth. The fool who knows his foolishness is wise at least so far, but a fool who thinks himself wise, he is called a fool indeed. If a fool be associated with a wise man even all his life, he will perceive the truth as little as a spoon perceives the taste of soup. One is the road that leads to wealth, another the road that leads to Nirvana. If the bhikshu has learned this, he will not yearn for honor. He will strive after separation from the world. Alright, so basically, this topic is the path of wealth. This is going to show out of the Buddhist philosophy and out of the Buddhist text, basically what the path of wealth leads to and where the path of Nirvana leads to. What I wanted to show here is I'm going to basically be dealing with this diagram, this chart, and breaking down each of those verses to help get all of the juice out of it. So let's go ahead and break this down. But it says basically there's a path that leads to Nirvana and there's a path that leads to wealth. You have to understand this very key thing. That's what I'm trying to break down and make a solid point about, is that the path of Nirvana and the path of wealth or money or riches is two totally different paths. Now what has happened in the Western world because of the New Age movement being influenced by Western value systems like materialism, optimism, a whole lot of different Western type of philosophies, even hedonism, which is the philosophy of the loving of pleasure. So what happens is they take all of the ancient texts from the East and from Africa and even from ancient Western societies like the Phoenician, Greeks, and Romans, and what they do is they take those quotes and those concepts of spirituality and they apply them to their desires or apply them to their Western values, which is basically the desire for the world, to be a part of the world. There's one key thing that the Buddha just said in this text. It's called the Dhammapada, separation from the world. Now right at the gate, we're going to be breaking that down and how that's in reference to wealth, but we got to take it step by step, and I'm going to do it quickly. But basically what happens is you have a lot of hypocrisy and double standards and deception in Western spirituality, in modern day Western spirituality, especially when dealing with the traditional Eastern spiritual systems like Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Shintoism, Jainism, Sikhism. So what happens is basically they take the best philosophies and quotes and teachings from these ancient paths and they apply them to Western ideologies and Western values, which basically just means values that are anti these ancient philosophies, these ancient paths, these ancient ideas. So what we're trying to do is basically remove the confusion, remove the deception, and get a clear view so we can reach the state of Nirvana. Now what is Nirvana? Nirvana basically is a state of consciousness that's beyond the three-dimensional, the three-dimensional cage or the three-dimensional perception of this physical world. Nirvana is basically like a trance. Nirvana basically means to blow out the flame. What flame? The flame that basically has you perceive this world and be attached to this world, to burn out those flames that basically are the flames of desire, lust, greed, pride, envy. So that's when Nirvana, to blow out those flames and then to light the flame of the Buddha. Buddha in Buddhism, all that just means, even Bodhi and Bodhisattva, all that just means is to bud. Same word in English, to bud. So it's like the budding of a lotus flower, the blossoming of a lotus flower. And it's the Sahasrara crown chakra, which is this lotus flower we're speaking of, the 1,000-petal lotus. And trying to open up all of these flowers, but that's what a Buddha is. A Buddha is someone who is awakened to many levels of these spiritual states despite being born in the physical world. And a Buddha is someone who is able to reach the state of enlightenment beyond death, rebirth, and reincarnation, which is basically what most people in the West are trapped in, this perpetuating this physical existence. So the path of nirvana leads to the spiritual world and to spiritual liberty, but wealth leads to the physical world and physical bondage. You have to make that clear. So it says that a fool would say, "These sons belong to me, this wealth belongs to me." Of such thoughts a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself, how much less sons and wealth. So the quote just said that the man himself does not belong even to his own self. Now what that's talking about is you have two levels of yourself. You have the physical form with all of its levels, and then you have the soul or the spiritual level. And that soul or spiritual level is beyond your ego. You gotta remember, a key Eastern concept, even Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of these systems, is that there is no ego. That who you were born as, your name, your personality, all that's an illusion and based on grooming and programming, based on your genes and based on your environment. So the reality is, who you really are is the all, called the Tathagata, or the Mahabodhistava, or the true cosmic form, the true cosmic consciousness, and that's all that all this is consciousness. There is no you, me, him, her, black, white. It's just consciousness taking on many illusory forms. So what it's saying is, a fool, remember, the path of knowledge is right. Before you can get to nirvana, you have to reach knowledge, and where knowledge is leading to, where the path of knowledge is leading to, is also where you reach nirvana. But you have to understand, a fool does not have knowledge. What a fool would say is he would have honor in his wealth and in his children. Right? These sons belong to me. This wealth belongs to me. Right? That's the attitude of a fool. That's the perception of a fool. But those things lead you away from what? Knowledge. Now you have to understand what all of this is saying, because these things lead you to the ego, the false self, the illusion. Because remember, it's based on personality, environment, circumstance, programming, grooming. Well, the whole world is trying to lead you to build up your personality, to build up your ego, to build up your persona, which is a mask. The word persona or person means mask. So that leads you to the illusion or Maya. So what you have to do to reach knowledge, which is to destroy your ego and to destroy the illusion of all of the forms and shapes that you see, and realize all is consciousness. That's what it means to be a Buddha, is right, to blossom that awakening. You have to get away from being distracted and veiled by the illusion of the world, which wealth will get you attached to society, right? Children will get you attached to the worries of the future, and every day is a ritual to protect them, provide for them, and so on. And even so, you do all of this work and you claim them as your own, but at the end of the day, they're going to end up suffering. You see? And you trapped in honor, which is social positioning. Meaning you have to always impress people, or always be envious, or always competing with people, whether it's on a racial level, economic level, classism, whatever. So this traps you permanently in the physical world for the rest of your life. And if you do it again, if you have a child and your child does it again and their child does it, then you perpetually trapped in this wheel of samsara. So that's what this is the wheel of samsara. So what's trying to be said is, how can a man claim that those things are his when he's not even himself? So you're not even yourself. You're not even your own ego. So how can you claim the things that are your ego? Because you have to understand, when you scale the proportion and perspective of time, it's all relative. So let's say 100 years is your lifespan. Well, that might just be 1 minute to your Bodhisattva form, or to your spiritual form. It's just 1 minute. So if I was to put on a costume for one day, let's say Halloween, that's not who I really am. That was just for that one day. So you can't claim anything that you earned or you gained in that one minute or that one lifetime, because when that 1 minute is over, all of it's going to be gone. It's never really yours. You never really had it. It was only for a second. It was an illusion. So whose is it? It's Maya's. It's the illusion. So you can get trapped in that and thinking that you are yourself, when really your ego is of Maya, and the things that you have, children and wealth, are yours, but that's of Maya. and get trapped in this material world, or you can get enlightenment or realize self-realization of who you truly are, which is consciousness beyond the physical world, and reach nirvana and get liberation. It says, the fool who knows his foolishness is wise at the least so far, but a fool who thinks himself wise, he is called a fool indeed. If a fool be associated with a wise man, even all of his life, he will perceive the truth as little as a spoon perceives the taste of soup. So what it's saying is, a fool that knows his foolishness, it's not about being egotistical and arrogant about what you know. It's really about what you don't know. So if a man can admit and acknowledge and do self-introspection from day to day on what it is that he does not know or she does not know, then you are right on the path of getting liberated, of getting what knowledge. So at least you can be credited. You see, so a fool that knows his foolishness, I mean, if you are trapped in these things, but you realize, wait a minute, and you question, why am I trapped in these things? How did I get trapped in these things? What happens if I get free from these things? Then you're no longer a fool, you see, because you're questioning your own foolishness. But it says, but a fool who thinks himself wise. Now, if you're a fool who thinks himself wise, now if you're trapped in these things, trapped in the illusion, the only real spiritual bondage, then you think yourself wise and you're truly a fool. That's what it's saying. There's really no bigger fool than that person that has deceived their own soul, their own self. So let's keep moving. It says, one is the road that leads to wealth, another road that leads to nirvana. So while you're walking on this path, the spiritual path, you have to understand there's a fork in the road. It's a crossroad. It's a fork. It's a split in the road. And it's totally different destinations. One is the higher realms, which is these higher spheres or these higher energy points in your body, or these lower spheres. One leads to spiritual liberation or heaven, or the Tathagata realms or the Bodhisattva realms, or one leads to money and wealth and you being trapped in this physical world. So you have to make your decision. You have to understand this is a split in the road. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have both. See? So let's make that clear. This is out of the teachings of the Buddhist philosophy. So let's keep moving. It says, if the bhikshu has learned this, he will not yearn for honor. He will strive after separation from the world. Now the word bhikshu, the word beg, so that B-E-G, and the word bhik, B-H-I-K, bhikshu, the word beggar and bhikshu is the same thing. So bhikshu is basically a holy man who has renounced wealth and lives his life as a beggar. That is the spiritual teaching of all the highest orders of every spiritual system on the planet. Whether it's in Africa, ancient Egypt, ancient Kush, ancient Greece, Rome, Phoenicia, the Hebrew system, which is basically the Israelites, the Judeans, the Sanatana Dharma with the Hindus, the Persians, even the Muslims with the Sufi movement. So the highest order, the most spiritual and holy order amongst all systems, whether it's African, all the way to West Africa, to East Africa, with West Africa with Vodun, Ifa, Odinani, Akan, all of them. All the way to East Africa, the ones we named, all the way to North Africa, to South Europe, to Middle East, all the way to the Far East. All of them agree that the monk lifestyle, the beggar lifestyle, is the only lifestyle that basically secures you and secures your path to nirvana or to spiritual enlightenment, spiritual awakening. So you have to understand the difference. As American people, the true teachings have been perverted, like I said earlier, with the New Age movement and wealthy people trying to become spiritualized. That's what happened. So they flipped the spiritual teachings upside down, and they kept the public from reading and understanding the ancient texts and ancient path, because it would expose their false premise or their false presentation. But right now we going back to the origins and to the most ancient texts and ancient ideologies of how all of these spiritual concepts got established, to remove the cloud of ignorance and the cloud of confusion. It says, if the bhikshu has learned this, he will not yearn for honor. He will strive after separation from the world. So he will yearn for what? Separation of the world. So that's very key. Right here. Right here at the heart, that's your choice. You're going to go toward wealth, lower realms, and be proud of your wealth, your children, and your honor? Or are you going to be at that crossroad, go toward Nirvana, to truth, knowledge, and spiritual enlightenment, and awaken that bodhi, or that third eye?